Well, good morning and welcome to the launch of the Supporting Parents website. It's fantastic to have so many of you with us here at the Australian Human Rights Commission today. I want to just start firstly by welcoming you all and thanking you very much for coming, to also acknowledge that we're meeting here on the traditional lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and to pay my respects to elders past and present. And to particularly welcome the Minister Michaelia Cash, who is the Minister assisting the Prime Minister on Women, who's going to launch our resources today. And also acknowledge our President, Gillian Triggs, as President of the Australian Human Rights Commission, and the other distinguished guests, which I'm going to announce to you very shortly. But it is an exciting day for us. It's an exciting day for a number of reasons, particularly when I look at the way what we're launching today has been able to bring to life what's really the key recommendation from our national review, which you may remember we conducted last year, looking at discrimination in 3 areas. One is when someone tells their manager or their employer that they're pregnant, when they seek to go on parental leave, and when they come back, and usually in some form of flexible work arrangement. So looking at the prevalence, the nature and consequence. As you know, in our review, we said the first thing is people need to understand rights and obligations. So what we're launching today actually goes directly to that. So it's a really exciting day in that all pregnant women in this nation who are working, and all employers who, you know, really welcome female talent, will today have one spot that they can go to understand their rights and obligations. So it's exciting for that reason. It's exciting because today's launch is actually the result of incredible collaboration between so many different government departments, from Human Services to Prime Minister and Cabinet to the Department of Employment, many government agencies. But not only that, we collaborated very much with employer groups, with ACCI and AIG and others, and we also collaborated very much with unions, and particularly the SDA, who really stepped up and were one of our partners on the research and also on this resource. And then, of course, the work is underpinned by academics. So it's a great example of what's possible when people and organisations that care about removing discrimination from Australia come together and lay the foundation for what will be a strong reform. So that's the second reason. And the third reason I'm really excited is because one of the Commission's priorities moving into the future and now is to work more and more in business and human rights. And that's key to the work that we're presenting today. And it's key to the work that our President will also be undertaking into the future. So with those words, I'd now like to hand over to Senator Michaelia Cash, who's been an amazing advocate for gender equality in Australia. When she saw the findings of a review, immediately stepped up and said, okay, Liz, what is it that we can do? Without your backing, without your funding, without the whole of government branding, we wouldn't be where we are today, Michaelia. So thank you so very much. It's great to have you here.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. And it really is fantastic to be here today at the Human Rights Commission to launch what I believe is really going to be a groundbreaking resource for employers and for employees in relation to pregnancy and returning to work. Can I commence, of course, by acknowledging the President of the Human Rights Commission in Gillian Triggs, and also a lady who is clearly very well known to us all, but I like to say is my partner in crime, in particular when we go off to the Commission on the Status of Women in New York, and that is our Sex Discrimination Commissioner, Liz Broderick. Can I also acknowledge our panel members, and I very much do look forward to hearing the panel discussion today, and that is, of course, Natalie James, Kate Carnell, Mark Brennan, Kristen Hilton, and Julia Fox. Ladies and gentlemen, Liz and I have discussed this resource on a number of occasions, and it came about, as you know, because last year the Human Rights Commission launched what was a groundbreaking report, Supporting Working Parents' Pregnancy and Return to Work National Review. We talked about the fact that as a society, as government, as a community, as businesses, you can have the best childcare system in the world. You can have the best paid parental leave system an organisation can offer. But if you're women in particular, and men who take paid parental leave, don't feel that they're being supported throughout their pregnancy, don't feel that they are welcome back into the workforce, they're not going to return. And what impact does that have on participation in Australia? When we looked at the results of the review, what we saw was, although anecdotally we knew that women were being discriminated in relation to their pregnancies at work, the report gave us the hard evidence that we really were then able to utilise in order to get this resource up and running. It was frankly a disappointing result that we saw coming out of the review, and it proved for us that the evidence in relation to discrimination and pregnancy was actually widespread. What it showed us was that there is pregnancy discrimination within the workplace. It's faced by parents, both men and women, who are returning to work from paid parental leave or parental leave. But I have to say the fascinating bit that I found, and I think the bit that really triggered why the government wanted to work with Liz in relation to acting on this recommendation, was it found that employers wanted to do the right thing. Employers weren't setting out to deliberately discriminate against people. It was just that they didn't know exactly what to do. And that's where it was the role of government and the role of the Sex Discrimination Commission to step in and say, we know you want to do the right thing. So what can we now do to ensure that you have the right advice, to ensure that you have practical resources that are going to inform you as to what your employees' rights are and to what your obligations as an employer are. So it was clear to me that, yes, we did need to do more to help employers, as I said, who want to do the right thing, but just needed that practical guidance to ensure that they are able to support their pregnant employees and, more importantly, to understand on how you capitalise on their skills and bring them back into the workforce. And so that's when Liz and I got together, and the government was able to announce the funding in relation to the development of these important resources. I truly believe that this is government partnering with obviously the Sex Discrimination Commission, but more broadly, as Liz said, we have a wide range of people here today who we've gone to and said, how can we develop this tool so it's a practical assistance in the workplace? And that's what you get when you work together as a team. You get the end result today, which I know so many of you have had a look at. I personally think is an absolutely fantastic guide for employers in the workplace. What it's going to do is it's going to give employers, as I said, those practical tips, what you need to do. But it's also fantastic for employees because it helps employees understand what their rights are, and it helps them in conjunction with their employer develop strategies to manage their pregnancy at work and on their return. Again, I believe that this is a step forward in transforming the culture, not just in workplaces, but the culture in Australia generally. It is something that is going to assist us in driving change. And at the end of the day, when you have an agenda that talks about participation, and that's very much what the agenda of this government is, you need to put in place resources that help employers to ensure that those who leave the workplace for pregnancy-related reasons are enabled back into the workplace. What I also hope that the resource does is it shows women that when you leave the workplace because of pregnancy, it's not a career limiting move. I talk to so many women who have left the workplace, obviously, as a result of their pregnancy. And it's really disappointing when you hear them say, I'm afraid that my job won't be there when I return. I'm afraid that, I'm going to lose the connectivity with my workplace, and I'm potentially not going to have the confidence to return to work. We're stopping that, and we're ensuring that going forward, they do have that connectivity, they do have that confidence, and we know that their return to work is wholeheartedly supported by their boss. When you actually look at the steps we need to take to increase women's workforce participation, we know that engaging in work is fundamental to ensuring that women improve their financial independence. I did a function yesterday in Brisbane at CEDA, and we went through the statistics in relation to the gender pay gap, in relation to women's retirement incomes. We know what they are. Everybody in this room does fantastic work to help bridge those statistics. But again, this is why what we're doing today is so important, because this practical resource will go a long way to ensuring that, again, we're just taking another step in the right direction to help women, in particular in relation to their retirement incomes. In terms just of the statistics, I'm always surprised, when I give speeches and we talk about what the statistic is in relation to increasing women's workforce participation. And we know that if we increase women's workforce participation to the same level of men, it would increase our GDP by 13%. Translate that into a dollar figure, $195 billion. What does that say about, why we should do this? As to the business people in this room, if people came to you with a plan that would increase your bottom line by 13%, by $195 billion, you'd sit down and you'd listen to them. Well, there is a plan, and this certainly today, the Supporting Working Parents website and online resources is part of that plan. Very much from my perspective, from the government's perspective, it should just be business as usual for a woman to work during her pregnancy without discrimination or bias. It should also be business as usual for women and men. And I look at the men in the room and men, because that's how we normalise our workplaces. It's when you also take that time off to take time for parental leave, to return to work and to work flexibly, again, without fear of discrimination. We all know we need to normalise flexibility in the workplace, and we need to normalise and family and caring responsibilities in the Australian workplace. Can I congratulate again Commissioner Broderick and everybody at the Australian Human Rights Commission, and, as Liz has said, the key government agencies and stakeholders who have worked so hard to develop, again, what I believe is an absolutely outstanding resource. But it's not just a resource, it's a resource that will make a practical difference in the lives of women and men in Australia. It's also going to make a huge difference for those employers whom the research showed are not deliberately doing the wrong thing. They want to do the right thing, but they just needed that little bit of guidance. This is the guidance, and it is going to ensure that we encourage more women to return to work and stay in the workforce. And ultimately, as we know, that is of benefit to all Australians. So Liz, congratulations. And it is just an outstanding achievement. I think government and yourself working together with the stakeholders, this is what we can achieve. Well done.
Thanks. Thanks very much, Minister, and it's been a great pleasure working together with you and with the different government agencies to produce this great resource. And also thank you to your government and to the Cabinet, who I know have supported the work that's happening here. Because as you say, this work goes to the heart of women's workforce participation. And as the Minister said, if we can close in some way the participation gap between men and women, that has huge potential in terms of our economy, but also in terms of building a society where everyone works and cares, where that work and care do not sit at opposite ends of one hard choice. When I launched the findings of the National Review about a year ago, I made the point that what we all agreed on, didn't matter whether it was a union movement, the employers, government, what we agreed on was that this form of discrimination has a cost to everyone. It has a cost to individuals, to their families, the workplace, and indeed the national economy. And from women like Jessie, who we met as we toured around, she said, I spent much of my pregnancy feeling anxious and sometimes in tears. Despite being thrilled about the pregnancy and being physically well, I felt powerless, vulnerable and fearful about my job security, and I couldn't understand why I was being treated so badly, especially given my unquestionable commitment to the organisation over the previous 7 years. Or from Maria, who told us, at the end of it all, I was left with no job, on the brink of losing my home, dealing with a miscarriage. I lost all my friends at work and was left just utterly broken. And as the Minister said, so for so many employers that I met who did want to do the right thing by their employees, but they just found that balancing pregnancy, parental leave and return to the workplace challenging. But not only that, they didn't know where to go to get information about this. As one great employer told me, he said, look, the first thing is you try to be very excited on behalf of the person who's telling you that they're pregnant. Secretly, what you're thinking is, how the hell am I going to replace this person for the next year? With the best intentions in the world not to discriminate in any way, how can you avoid being concerned? How am I going to run this company and meet my objectives in the next year or two? And that's a very real and very authentic expression from a beautiful man that we met as we travelled around. So what did we find? Well, the National Review found that 1 in 2 mothers reported experiencing discrimination at some time, either during their pregnancy, when they went on parental leave, or when they sought to come back in a flexible work arrangement. We found that pregnancy and return to work discrimination had a cost, not just to individual workplaces, but as the Minister points out, it's got a cost to our economy. So a couple of facts and figures. What we know is nearly a third of mothers, that's 32% of mothers who experienced discrimination at some point, either looked for another job or resigned. Mothers who experienced discrimination during pregnancy were much less likely to return to their job or indeed to return to the workforce at all. We saw a percentage of mothers, and it was around about 22%, leave the labour market. 1 in 5 mothers indicated they were made redundant, restructured, dismissed, or that their contract was not renewed because of their pregnancy, parental leave, or when they returned to work. And as I said there, 22% of women who were discriminated against did not return to the workforce at all, compared with 14% who didn't experience discrimination. So this issue is, goes to the heart of women's continuing participation in paid work. And as the Minister said, we can have the best paid parental leave scheme in the world. We can have a childcare system that delivers. But if pregnant women and new parents are not welcome in the workplaces of Australia, none of the other two will matter. So during the National Review, we consulted extensively. We did 50 group consultations, over 430 individuals, went to employers, representatives of community organisations, unions, employer associations, business, industry peaks. We received well over 450 submissions. And the really terrific thing, I think, now is that Australia is one of only 3 countries in the world that has a nationally representative sample of mothers' experience during pregnancy, and indeed men who take parental leave on their return to work, because men are a very big part of this picture. Through the consultations, one thing we kept on hearing again and again is the legal framework is reasonably robust in this area. The fact is, though, that there is an implementation gap driven by a lack of clarity of rights and obligations. And that's where this resource comes in. It seeks to really address that implementation gap, because we heard from employees and employers that they found it difficult to find clear and comprehensive information on rights and obligations. They told us there's no one place where we can go. There's state law, there's federal law. This is so complex, we can't sort our way through it. And that's why the first recommendation of the review was we need to fill the gap in understanding rights and obligations. And that will include the dissemination of clear, comprehensive and consistent information about employer obligations, about employee rights across all relevant laws, about employment law, work health and safety law and discrimination law. So it's a pretty complex picture. So that's what the website and online resources that we're launching today deliver. And you can just see on the screen one of the front pages. You can see it's branded the Australian government, and that was really important because this is a whole of government initiative, and most importantly it will be launched from the paid parental leave page from the Department of Human Services. It's simple, user-friendly. The website includes a section for employers, so this includes easy to access questions and answers on various aspects concerning pregnancy and returning to work. It includes a quick guide to supporting working parents, because let's face it, small business doesn't have a lot of time to navigate through a whole lot of resources. But for those who do want to spend a bit more time, it includes a comprehensive toolkit. Just looking at the quick guide there, it outlines the key discrimination issues, provides answers to commonly asked questions, and also is designed to assist small business. If we go to the toolkit, it's a much more comprehensive look for employers. So those who want more comprehensive information, which at all points of the pregnancy and return to work cycle, will be able to go in and get some really detailed information. There it outlines key points. It provides answers to questions such as, can I ask my employee if she's pregnant? I mean, a lot of employers don't know that. And through to, how can I support employees who are breastfeeding? It's got top tips, it's got checklists, it's got practical tools that employers can implement to support working parents. And then, of course, you've got the employee page, and it provides similarly information on rights and obligations of employees. It's got the quick guide, which also looks at the legislative framework for working parents at various points across the pregnancy, so depending on where you are in the pregnancy or return to work. And the employee guide also provides comprehensive information for parents to enable them to really understand the laws that relate to pregnancy, parental leave and return to work. Once again, it includes top tips, a key point summary, and answers to questions such as, when do I need to tell my employer that I am pregnant? I mean, that's a really important thing. I know it's my own pregnancy is something that I struggled with being in a large law firm, and the kind of practice was leave it till right at the last moment. That way you won't be as discriminated against. So, you know, the suits are getting tighter and tighter. But so those types of questions through to, do I have any rights if I breastfeed, if I express in the workplace? What role am I entitled to when I return to work? All those things are addressed in the resource. So what's going to happen is, just even over the next few months, we really plan to add to the resource with a compilation of some of the really innovative things that we saw as we travelled around Australia and led the review, and some of the work of leading practices of organisations. So all that information will be also uploaded onto the website. And as I said before, I'm particularly excited that these resources will be disseminated to pregnant employees and their employers through the Department of Human Services paid parental leave website. Because you know what? That allows us to disseminate information to every pregnant employee in this nation, including the employers who employ these women and men. So I suppose just in closing then, as I step down as the Sex Discrimination Commissioner, as I will do in about 6 weeks, I've been reflecting over the last few weeks on just the things that have really been a joy for me in the role. And I think one of the things I've enjoyed so much is the collaboration that has been possible, and the collaboration across sectors, across government, across different stakeholder groups. That's been one of the greatest highlights, and I have to say this project was a great example of it. So everyone came together. We said, look, discrimination has a cost to all of us, so let's come together to do something about that. So I want to just thank everyone for the commitment that they've had to creating the resource. You know, when we work together, we can really shape a more gender equal future, and I think that's what we've been able to do. We've taken one step forward with the resource. I want to thank Susan Price, who's sitting with us today. She was she came to us from PricewaterhouseCoopers and was really one of the key authors of the resources that you've seen on the screen today. We also consulted extensively with ACCI, and we've got Kate Carnell here, so thank you, Kate. With the Workplace Gender Equality Agency Employers of Choice, quite a number of them, the Male Champions of Change organisations. Thank you to all of you. To the Australian Council of Trade Unions and the Shoppies, the SDA, were really fabulous partners in this project. Also, Victoria Legal Aid gave invaluable feedback on the drafts because they're often out on the front line. So that was fantastic. And I do want to acknowledge the government departments and agencies that have worked so collaboratively with us, the Office for Women, the Department of Employment, the Fair Work Ombudsman, and it's great to have Natalie James with us today, Department of Social Services, Department of Human Services, the Workplace Gender Equality Agency, Safe Work Australia, the Small Business Commissioner, Mark, who's with us today, and all the state and territory equal opportunity commissions. So you can see the breadth of the collaboration. That's been one of the greatest things about this project. And finally, I want to acknowledge the terrific team that's come together at the Commission to put these resources together. We've got Annabelle Pope, who is also another of the lead authors on the resource, Sarah Winter, Lynette Garrick, Carolyn Chodola, and the conciliation team have really provided great input. Our legal team, our web team, and last but not least, I have to commend Lisa Puzzi. She had a vision for these resources. Lisa's had 2 children not so long ago, so she was absolutely committed to bringing that vision to reality. And Lisa, without your great collaborative skills and the ability to bring the whole thing together, we wouldn't be where we are today. So thank you so very much. I do feel a great sense of optimism about our ability to shape a more gender equal Australia. And I think we need to continue to recognise that this area, the area of discrimination during pregnancy and return to work, is a key area that organisations must focus on. Understanding rights and responsibilities is a starting point, and that's why I'm so pleased to launch today. Thank you very much. And what I'm going to do now is to introduce the fabulous panel that we have, because we're going to have just a bit of discussion about how the resources will be used in different areas of influence and why individuals and their organisations came on board. So if I can ask the panellists to come up. Well, I'm delighted here. So we've got Kate Carnell, the CEO of ACCI, who you will know, Julia Fox, who's the chair of the Women's Committee of the ACTU, and the SDA, so the Shoppies National Office, Kristen Hilton, who's from Victorian Legal Aid, and then we've got Natalie James, who's the Fair Work Ombudsman, and indeed Mark Brennan, who's the Australian Small Business Commissioner. Each of these organisations have really played a critical role in bringing the resources together. So I suppose I'll just launch off with a general question to the panel, and that is that I'm very interested to understand why you wanted to invest in the supporting working parents resources, why that was important to you, and what impact do you anticipate the resources will have in your area. So we might start with Kate.
Look, thank you very much, Liz. And can I just say, because I might not have another chance publicly, to also thank you for the time that you've been in the role and the fact that you have embraced business at all levels, not just the big end of town, but also the small to medium sector. It's meant a lot, and I believe this resource shows that a lot, because the vast percentage of businesses in Australia are small to medium businesses. And the challenge when you're in SMEs, in a small to medium business, is that it's really complex. It's a complex environment to operate in, lots of awards, there's state legislation, federal legislation, And the thing about small to medium businesses is your staff become, well, they're fundamental to you. They become your family almost. You want to do the right thing, as you said before, but it is a complex space. And when somebody tells you that they're pregnant, you want to do the right thing, but having one place to go that gives you an opportunity to know exactly what you need to do, how you need to do it, and also somewhere that you can suggest to your staff member where they might go as well. I think it just makes it simpler, and that's where, I mean, that's going to be in everybody's best interest. It is complex. Legislation is complex, regulations complex, awards are complex. This will simplify, and that's good for business. It helps business do the right thing by their employees.
Thanks heaps, Kate. Natalie? Yep.
Thanks, Liz. Look, I must echo Kate's words that you are an inspiring leader in this space, and as an agency head, I look to you as I guess a shining example.
Thanks.
So I think I wouldn't be the only one looking to emulate the collaborative way in which you've gone about working with partners to achieve change, and including this fantastic resource. So to me, the critical thing is about instilling confidence in the community, and it is a complex area, no doubt about that. And now for the first time, we have one clear, authoritative and definitive source of information covering workplace law, workplace health and safety law, and all of the different sets of discrimination laws, which are almost but not quite the same, unhelpfully. And so one clear authoritative source of information and advice will instill confidence, I think, in business and in workers that they've got advice that they can rely on, that provides the foundations for what can sometimes be really challenging conversations around how to manage these issues in the workplace. And we certainly find that when we're talking to people, that there is a lack of confidence. And indeed, I think the Minister touched on this, some fear on all sides. So to give you an example, the other day I was talking to one of my people he works in our area. It's called early intervention. And that's where matters come, where we identify them coming through our Fair Work Info line, that there's a dispute brewing, and we think if we can get in early and they're still in the employment relationship, maybe we can keep them on track. And so we had a scenario where a childcare centre employer had come to us and said, I've got a worker and she's pregnant and she needs to reduce her hours and she wants to take Friday off, but I can't not have her on Friday. And he was fearful, didn't know how to have this conversation. And it turned out, so we talked to the employer and we talked to the employee, we encouraged them to have a conversation, and they ended up agreeing to an arrangement whereby the hours were reduced over the course of the week in a different way. So a medical certificate was obtained to confirm that this was all right. So the employee, who no doubt had fear as well in raising this issue, fear for her health and the health of her unborn child and her job, was able to have confidence that this arrangement would work for her, that she would keep her job, and that they'd had this conversation that meant that they were both on the same page. So to me, providing support and information is key to instilling that confidence. And the flow on from that is immense, because the flow on happens in that workplace with those individuals. Confidence leads to, we hope, more confidence about staying in the workforce after pregnancy, and confidence to continue to participate in the workforce with all of those dividends that are paid economically and in the workplace itself. So I think this has been a fantastic opportunity to produce something that I think will instill confidence, greater confidence in workplaces around the country to deal with what's a challenging issue.
Thanks very much, Natalie. Mark?
Thanks,
Small business
Liz.
Yeah.
We're very pleased to be supporting this initiative, and as with the others, I really do commend the Commission on the work that's been done here. One of the aspirations of the Small Business Commissioner is to seek to improve the quality of the business environment. And we believe if you can improve the quality of the business environment, everybody who participates in business will benefit. And this initiative falls very squarely in that area, that if you're going to have better workplaces, and you're going to get rid of discriminations, you are going to contribute to overall a better quality of business environment for anyone participating in the Australian business community. So we're very strongly supportive of initiatives of this kind. And where government does intervene in matters such as imposing rights and obligations on the business community, we see that there are two core responsibilities that government should abide by, and one of those is information and education, to make and education used in quite a loose sense there, to ensure that those who are expected to adhere to obligations or asserting rights have the right sort of information available to them so that they understand what the compliance is all about. So any intervention, I think, has got to tick that box that there's resources going towards making sure that the information's out there so people know what they've got to do. And in this case, this resources are going to be make a tremendous contribution that way. And as others have said today, the Senator said it too, that in the case of smaller businesses and medium-sized businesses, where they don't comply with obligations, it's not because they're evildoers or they don't want to or whatever. It's just that they're not quite so aware. It's a lot of almost management incompetence in some cases where they won't comply with various obligations. So if we can get information out to them that can assist them to comply, that's very important. In fact, one of our maxims is that no small business should fail through lack of access to information. So getting information out there is very important. The other core responsibility we see is having access to justice, so you have dispute resolution processes available, but that's really another major topic. Just in going forward with this particular initiative, a challenge always in anything where you're impacting on the small business community is how you get the information to them. And a challenge particularly is getting information, what I refer to as the unaffiliated small businesses. And these are the ones that are not members of industry associations, they're not members of chambers of commerce. They don't have an information feed through those sorts of associations, the one who say that they'll battle on and get by under their own steam. So there's always a challenge about how you get to the unaffiliated small businesses. One way of trying to attract interest that way is whilst we need to emphasise that there's a need to comply with obligations, but if you can also identify a way of getting to the business community where there's something in it for them. And it seems to me that there's a real marketing opportunity for businesses who can say that they care for their employees, that they look after them, that they observe their discrimination obligations, and that people who are pregnant can go on leave, they can return to work and they can come back, and then this is a real feature of our workplace, and it's a marketing thing for their workplace. So I think there's some interesting times to go forward with. It's a fantastic start in getting the resource up and running, and we'll certainly be doing what we can to assist in ensuring that the message gets out to everybody so that the quality of the business environment is enhanced for everyone.
Thanks very much, Mark. And interestingly, the research found that you're better off in a small organisation than a large, which is interesting, which speaks to the issues that you and Kate were talking about. Julia, so you're often working at the front line with pregnant employees. How do you think the resource will
Thank you,
affect
Liz.
them?
I echo the comments of Natalie and Kate and commend your work, Liz, on this area and the inclusiveness, the approach that you've taken. It's been fantastic and resulted in a very good outcome, and will result in a good outcome for union members and employees in general. I think this type of comprehensive one-stop shop resource has been something the union movement's been asking for a long, long time, and it goes back to the 1999 inquiry. It was one of the recommendations from that inquiry. What I'm buoyed by is the inquiry this time round from the report findings being issued last year, and now 12 months later we have a comprehensive resource available, and I really commend the Commission on that. That's an amazing achievement, and so shows the importance of this issue for employees and employers. And I suppose from the SDA's perspective and the ACTU, it's bringing all the complexity, and it is a complex area. It covers OHS, it covers discrimination law, it covers employment law, it covers even issues of privacy, it's a range of issues that employers have to manage in the workplace. I think this guide in particular, what I'm happy to see is some dedicated resources around the work health and safety side of things. Pregnancy, it can be physically demanding. Work can be physically demanding for our members in retail. It can be very heavy work. So I think employers need some help with trying to work out how to best, one, understand what pregnancy can mean in a physical sense for workers and the changes that may occur and what's needed for employees to be able to manage that in the workplace. I think they need that resource around just thinking from a safety perspective about bullying and harassment and all the other things. And the valuable addition, just reading about your obligations in the safety space will help greatly. We had some pretty shocking cases as part of our SDA submission where, you know, the bullying and harassment is pretty prevalent. Women are still called fat, lazy when they're at work because of their pregnancy. We've had cases that resulted in miscarriage. We've had cases that resulted in premature birth. It's been some pretty shocking cases in this day and age. We still have women told they're not allowed to go to the toilet. So you think, wow, that's amazing that we're in this space. So this resource just gives employers a chance to sit down and work it out in a comprehensive way. I know what my industrial relations obligations are, but I also am thinking from a safety perspective, and I'm just trying to manage what can be complex, but sometimes is pretty simple on the other side. A bit of dignity and respect can go a long way. So we really commend and recommend these fantastic resources, and thank you.
Thanks very much, Julia. And Kristen, also you're working at the front line as well through the Victorian Legal Aid. How do you think the resource will be used?
Yes, we are. And just a final bouquet, Liz, to congratulate you on your work and other commissioners. I noticed Tim Wilson just entered the room, and also the presidency of Gillian Triggs. I mean, this is such an important institution and fundamental to a rights respecting culture in Australia. So I commend you personally and the work of the Commission. Like Julia, we see lots and lots of clients, you know, daily ring up to us about issues that they've experienced in the workplace, whether returning from maternity leave or who have just become pregnant. I think a third of our current cases at the moment all relate to pregnancy discrimination, so that's really high. And we see the effects of that. And it's not just the immediacy of the actual pregnancy discrimination issue, but it's also the ancillary issues that leads to. So we have women, for example, who have had severe morning sickness and have requested a reasonable adjustment to their workplace, such as working part-time for a period, and the employer has said no, and that has resulted in them being unable to pay their rent, housing insecurity, as well as loss of connectivity in the workplace, a crisis of confidence, and while managing what can be joyful but also can be very stressful and physically taxing experience of having a baby. We've had clients call us and say that they're too stressed to even breathe because they have one child at home, they're experiencing another, and they've been told that they're not going to be able to come back to the workplace on a part-time basis. So yes, there is a lot of misinformation. I think there's a lack of understanding. I think there is, and I think this resource will absolutely contribute to the clarity around what employers' obligations are and employees' rights are. I don't think it's going to fix it. I think it's a step forward. And one of the things that I think it will help shape is a more progressive culture, I think, around caring for pregnant workers and caring for their partners as well. And I think that that's what we need to move to. Just from my own personal experience, so I work for a large organisation. We've got about 650 employees. I've left 3 times to go on maternity leave, and each time my boss has been, I'm sure he's had that sinking feeling of, but he's been, very, very supportive. But I'm one of 5 girls, and they've all had children as well. And each time over the last couple of years, they've called me and said, Chris, my boss says that I'm not allowed to come back to work on a full-time, I'm not allowed to come back to work on a part-time basis, or they've said that they'll pay me maternity leave, but they're not going to pay me my super. So these are, professional, articulate women who are reasonably resilient and robust in sort of going to their employees. And the vulnerability that I think that this situation places women in, and as I think, the Senator mentioned that men have got to be part of the solution, and we also see women come to us and say that their partner has asked for leave, and that has response has been, well, you're perhaps not taking your job seriously enough, or your wife is at home looking after the children, why would you need leave? So there are a whole lot of attitudes that I think need to shift so that we can inspire the confidence within our business community, as both Mark and Natalie and Kate mentioned, and to recognise that women are fantastically creative workers in these situations as well. I wrote an op-ed just after I'd had my third child about the findings of the Discrimination Commission's report, and I think I referred into it where I'd had an interview with John Fain, and I was at home. It was one of the days that I worked from home, and I had 3 kids at home at the time, and I'd had to lock myself in the cupboard to do the radio interview while Peppa Pig was blasting outside in the family room. And, we are an innovative workforce. Technology has improved and has changed to a point where we can allow flexible working conditions. And so I think this resource will help us be much clearer about our obligations and also embrace the creativity that our workplaces need to thrive.
Thanks very much, Kristen. I think you've heard from each of our panellists just how committed they are to eradicating pregnancy and return to work discrimination from the Australian environment, and also their deep commitment to ensuring that these resources get out far and wide. As I was thinking about today, I reflected on my own experience. I at the time that these issues were happening for me, I ran a team at Blake Dawson, or Dawson Waldron as they were then, and we had a team of 8 lawyers. We'd grown from nothing to 8. We thought we were pretty impressive. I had a day that started like any other day, and then my first lawyer came to see me. Oh, Liz, guess what? I'm pregnant. Oh, fantastic. When are you taking parental leave? Great, no problem. That same afternoon, the next one came. Liz, guess what? I'm having a baby. That is amazing. Fantastic. My heart was sinking at that point. Oh, my God, how am I going to run this thing? Oh, fantastic. When will you have parental leave? Well, when the third one came the next day, and what they didn't know was that I was also pregnant. We had half the legal team out on maternity leave at exactly the same time. But as you say, Kristen, necessity is the mother of invention. So we're able to step it up and engage with in a good conversation with our employer. But I just was reflecting on how much easier it would have been had we had the type of resource that we're launching today. So I just want to thank you all so much for coming on this journey with us. I'm really proud to be standing here launching this report, and to thank everyone for coming along today. Thank you. So we do now have tea and coffee, which is being served just outside, and our panellists are here for a few minutes as well if anyone has any questions. Thank you.